has finally happened. After years of searching both in-game and even in real life, Cyberpunk 2077's largest mysteries, because yeah, there are actually two of them, were solved, at least probably. It definitely is a bit of a weird situation, and I'll get into why exactly that is. But for years now, Cyberpunk 2077 has had two major mysteries, the true meaning behind the statues scattered around Night City, some of which read FF06B5, but also one that has been going on for even longer with the Cyberpunk ARG. This began all the way back in 2018. Yeah, remember that weird moment when a hacker interrupted the Xbox E3 presentation for the Cyberpunk tease? There's actually a bit more going on than you may have realized, and that also kicked off an ARG, as one of the shared codes in this was an IP address that led to a new section of the Cyberpunk 2077 website. And this was the start of a journey. Through the rest of 2018, players progressed through clues, gaining access to totally new websites CDPR had created, and even care packages were sent out to some of those making discoveries, of which the shirt sent out to players ended up being the key to decode future clues, so there was definitely levels of this. But in 2019, things with the Cyberpunk ARG seriously started to ramp up. On the pre-order page for Cyberpunk 2077, players realized that this underscore was flashing. It turns out this flashing wasn't nothing, and in fact, this was actually Morse code, leading to coordinates pointing towards CDPR's LA office. So these game detectives did the unthinkable and literally hired somebody off of the Los Angeles Craigslist to go to CDPR's LA office, and well, lo and behold, there was a QR code placed on the door. This leading to yet another hidden page on the official Cyberpunk 2077 website with Aramis. On this, there were several more hidden files, which once found eventually led to nightcorp.net, which was a pretty big milestone because of course, Nightcorp is a major faction in the main story of Cyberpunk 2077. And of course, Nightcorp has its own set of mysteries in-game. But this new website had a secret buried within, silence.mp3. Over a 24-hour period, sounds would play from the website, many of these being hours apart, and these sounds were 13 distinct numbers spoken in 10 different languages. Yeah, things got pretty serious with the Cyberpunk 2077 ARG. After listening for all of the sounds and of course translating them, you had a phone number formed from each of the numbers said, and that phone number would lead to a new Reddit account named CorpThing, this being an anagram for Night Corp. CorpThing talked to a few of the ARG players and even revealed that Sandra Dorset, the woman rescued right at the start of Cyberpunk 2077 and who has a larger questline later on, had now escaped the hospital and was trying to disrupt a big move that Night Corp was planning. And to put this all into context, this is back in 2019 when this was going on. All of these discoveries around the ARG are being made a full year prior to Cyberpunk 2077 even coming out. We only knew about Sandra Dorset due to the 2018 gameplay showcase. It's not like anybody had really played the game and gotten to interact with her themselves yet, but now that the game is out, it was pretty clear that this is all actually happening. There is a gig involving Sandra Dorset where you find her incredibly paranoid due to some of the revelations she is making about Night Corp, and specifically, it's some kind of mind control AI tech they're using on their employees. This is known as Operation Carte Noctum. So in many ways, the ARG was actually a teaser for some of the lore that would later come from the game itself. From this point, there were tons of communications back and forth between CorpThing, Sandra D, and even a new account with Shazan Sill, Sandra Dorset remaining adamant that CorpThing was not to be trusted. This all eventually led to this puzzle, and within a message was found. This seemingly being from Gary, potentially the same conspiracy theorist Gary that we can also find in-game, and describes how we need to find Sandra and that we are being watched. In late 2019, several envelopes were sent out to creators that happened to be covering the ARG, including one of the creators named JuiceHead. These packages contained a bunch of envelopes, and once opened, the envelopes each had individual puzzles that needed to be solved. Some of these were riddles, while others are just ciphers to be decoded, and this all led to another new website with netwatch-ncpd.com, and on this website there was a login form found, and that was actually it. This is all achieved towards the end of 2019, and the next major breakthrough in the Cyberpunk 2077 ARG, which led to the login and password for this website, wasn't actually made until 2023. It just happened a couple of months ago, as on August 3rd, 2023, on CDPR's official Discord server for Cyberpunk 2077, a user named Anon42 posted a message saying, "Some things are best hidden in plain sight, so I'm dropping the docs you requested right here. It's crowded enough to hide it in the logs quickly, and one would need to know what to look for anyway to open the archive. Good luck, Sandra." And attached here was a password-protected RAR file named Carpe. This, of course, immediately made a lot of the users in the Cyberpunk Discord concerned, like, who is this random person spreading random files? But of course, this was part of the ARG, and even imagine that a non-42 naming may sound familiar to some of you. There's a shard in Sandra Dorsett's apartment in-game that mentions how somebody named a non-42 was right about some uncharted section of the net out in the boonies. Thankfully, the game detectives were quick to take notice of this and figured out that the password to access this file was Noctum. As we mentioned just before, this operation from Night Corp was named Carpe Noctum. In this, there was a single file that was a suspect list for an NCPD case, and these 6 suspects were listed out with the locations of their evidence against them labeled. And these names were not random, as each of these suspects had gotten Humans of Night City posts in the past. Humans of Night City were a series of posts that CDPR made on Twitter, showcasing the residents of Night City and even some of their backstory. This suspect list provided itself as a guide to get further information out of these tweets that had been made over the past year or so. So as an example, take the first suspect, Bartolomeo Mordellini. His evidence was in room E, shelf N, so EN was the clue here, meaning you would use the English version of the Humans of Night City post, while some other suspects had to use other languages like Italian, Polish, or others. And the number combinations gave you the word and letter to use. So here, 10-1 means we look at the 10th word, first letter in this post. 48-5 means the 48th word and 5th letter in that word. So doing this, a bunch of words were found, several of which need to be decoded into further Phantom Liberty or Cyberpunk lingo. But while this was going on, a non-42 returned to the Discord to share another message. Scanning picture achieves minimum, further offerings revealed at universal medium. And if you look at the first letter of each of those words, it would spell out spam forum. And on the official Cyberpunk 2077 forums, in the spam section, you could find a new post from a seemingly banned user selling cheap trauma team subscriptions, and then a bunch of replies wanting those subs, until Netwatch replies putting a stop to all of it. And the key here is the IDs. The number on the IDs are thread and post IDs on the Cyberpunk 2077 forum. This leads to a post from a CDPR employee in 2021 talking about how much money Victor has collected, which, although interesting, didn't really seem to reveal much until you realize that there's actually secret text in this old post. It's the same color as the website background hidden in plain sight this whole time. This can be further decoded using base 64 and reveals a veneer cipher, with the keyword being badges. You get the keyword from those earlier words from the Humans of Night City posts. And this here is a pretty simple shift cipher, so all of the letters are simply shifted along the alphabet and the key tells you where to shift them back to. So using badges, you can decode this entire message found to spell out, gotta make it quick cause I have a tail to lose. I broke into that archive, you know which one. Not safe to name drop who I fish, left a hint in transmission, use forename.surname as login. I hid the 38-digit pin code in transmission, it's hidden in plain sight, so me. So of course, so me is Songbird, one of the main characters in Phantom Liberty, and here she is finally doing it, revealing to us how to get into this login page that we've had since late 2019. The transmissions she mentions in this decoded message are tweets from CDPR. On many of their tweets, there are these random numbers on the side, and if you take the numbers given by Songbird, there are 2 tweets that match. But it's the second post that appears to be the solution, mentioning Saburo Arasaka, which ultimately is the login. And the other number provided by Songbird led to this tweet. It's a back and forth between Takamura and V, but of note are these numbers on the left side, and notice how each of these numbers is a 0, 1, or 2. This is ternary, kind of like binary but with 3 digits. And this was even hinted at in the original message from Songbird, as they say hidden in plain sight, spelling hidden with a 3. So once you know it's ternary, you can pretty easily decode this for the password. And thus, after years of waiting, it is finally possible to log into this website, to which you'll find tons of rather uncanny images. So yeah, the big reveal here are several pages of just kind of uncomfortable images, each having a label of verified, not verified, or corrupted. 4 of the images contained a Night Corp logo and text suggesting that something would occur on August 16th, and it did, as returning to that original nightcorp.net page, which was found years ago, but now on August 16th, this play button was actually functional, and clicking it would lead to the official fan page of the Night City Corsairs. So lots of the pages here would just yield a Netwatch warning, but if you go to the news section and click on the red pinned text, you'll get a very simple text page from Sandra Dorsett, which reads, "This is Sandra. Thank you for helping me with Night Corp. I dug out a lot of dirt on them. It'll take a minute to load. Take it to the media, make people aware." And then it just says connecting, but what you'll find is over time, if you leave this page open, more dots will appear, almost like a load screen, and eventually you'll be forwarded to this form to fill out, and this form is a test that is not meant to be be shared. You fill out your name and email and then several pages of Cyberpunk and ARG related questions. About 2 weeks ago, 20 people had answered this correctly, triggering the end as an email was sent out to those 20 reading, "You've reached the end of our Cyberpunk 2077 ARG and answered all questions in the final test correctly. Many have tried, but only a few have passed." And in an incredibly interesting follow-up, we hear how we're working on one final piece of the mystery. But before that, those 20 winners will be getting exclusive ARG t-shirts. So of course, this begs the question, what does this actually mean? Seemingly, the ARG is in fact over, but perhaps just for now, or until a final piece is revealed. It seems likely that there'll be a larger tie-in with Night Corp and whatever is going on there. Sandra does mention digging up a ton and how we should bring it to the media, but technically all we ever got was a quiz. We gave information. We never really got a bunch of information. So perhaps at some point there will be a giant information dump from this link. If anything, it seems like this could be used to tease something else or have an event tie-in at some point. But at least for now, after 5 years of effort, the Cyberpunk 2077 ARG is solved. At least for now. But based off the last gap in progress being 3.5 years long, we could be waiting a little while. But like I mentioned earlier in this video, this is only actually one of 2 major mysteries in Cyberpunk 2077 and 2 mysteries that were solved in the past couple of weeks. As separately, we have the FF06B5 mystery, which was also solved. Compared to the ARG, FF06B5 is far more forward-facing. Around Night City, there are 8 of these statues in varying sizes, and some read FF06B5 on their chest. And the hunt for what this truly means has led to all sorts of discoveries. FF06B5 itself translates to the color shocking pink. CDPR devs themselves have weighed in on the mystery and the hunt for answers. But with patch 2.0, the path to the solution was made far more clear. The church featured in the Nomad prologue was overhauled and seemingly became the residence of a character named Polyhister, an actual in-game character trying to make sense of FF06B5 themselves. In my last video, we went over many of the discoveries made around this, what Polyhister themselves actually found in the game, but also discoveries made by the community around Polyhister, such as secrets hidden within games, back and forth correspondence with other truth seekers, but also a variety of items scattered around Night City, a note from what appeared to be one of Polyhister's peers, and even a mysterious laptop featuring an Ouroboros and some codes. And it's very likely that this laptop in fact belonged to one of the main peers of Polyhister in this hunt, somebody named Tyro Manta. And this is pretty important because this Ouroboros on this laptop is incredibly similar to what was found in The Witcher 3 Next Gen. Because yeah, FF06B5 got a clue in a secret area in The Witcher 3. So at this point, FF06B5 has become a multi-year, multi-game ARG. If you want a full recap of what has been found thus far, check out my last video linked here. But where things left off was after unlocking a secret maze in the Arasaka 3D game found in Polyhister's shack, 8 terminals would open up and we seemingly had to uncover the codes for these terminals to solve the mystery. So now it was almost quite simple, a clear direction, a clear answer. Just find 8 codes and you have your solution, at least probably. And that was done almost immediately because using some of the mod tools known as RedMod, fans were able to manually reveal the codes and find the solution to the mystery. But it would take a bit more time to find things legitimately after CDPR confirmed that using RedMod was not the intended solution. And all of that became moot with patch 2.01 because all of those data mine codes were changed and invalidated. So instead, these 8 terminals had new code requirements tied to other findings. So now all 8 of these codes have been found, and some of these were found almost immediately after the release of patch 2.01. All of the codes now begin with a couple of zeros, and the first 3 terminals were literally FF06B5. Terminal 1 is 00255, and you get that just by turning FF from hex to decimal. The second terminal was just 4 zeros and a 6 for 06. And the third one was 00181, B5 converted to decimal format. The 6th code was 00240, which was just one carryover. This was actually found previously and it stayed the same, but there's also quite literally a sticker on the terminal that says 240, so this code was basically just a giveaway. So just like that, without any code breaking or intense amounts of effort, 4 of the 8 codes were found, all of this on the launch day of patch 2.01. But the solution for the rest of the codes would require quite a bit more legwork, as this key will lay in the laptop that has been unused up until this point. Pretty quickly, users recognized that all of these symbols being shown on the laptop were actually the Witcher alphabet. And this laptop could be translated to English letters, and then after a quintessential discovery made by user Tokyo Jinx, it was concluded that this was a hexadecimal translation that needed to be decoded. You see, hexadecimal uses numbers and letters, each corresponding to a 16-number chain, but this would only give you solutions for some of these letters. What Tokyo Jinx concluded was that the alphabet must continue, so all of the other letters, even the ones not normally included in a hexadecimal conversion, must convert somehow. So working from this theory, along with some backtracking in some of these solved codes, you could actually start to translate these groupings, leading to another translation key being created. And once you had the key, things became a lot more straightforward, because the actual answer as to what codes you have to put into each of these 8 machines was in The Witcher 3. This mural on the wall in The Witcher 3 is the solution. You would first translate the Witcher alphabet to English letters, then from English letters to hex letters or numbers, and finally from hex to decimal, which would just provide all of the codes for the terminals. And after doing all of that, finally inputting all 8 terminal codes, not much would happen, seemingly. There wasn't a grand on-screen pop-up, but things in the world had changed. A brand new file was added to the laptop in Polyhister Shack, this named copy magenta success. There's another file on this laptop with a very similar name. In the original file, there was no results found. But now in this new file, we did have a successful sequence, and a new mysterious waypoint is added to your character. This will lead you out into the Badlands, where an old dirty mattress can be found a short distance off of the waypoint. And honestly, it looks like there is nothing around, but that isn't true, as this bed has a secret activator. After correctly putting in the codes in all of the terminals, you must arrive at this mattress after 4 a.m. It seems like the exact time doesn't matter, but it must be around 4 a.m. and for me, specifically after 4 a.m. And then you just stand here. It'll take about 30 minutes of in-game time between 4 and 5 a.m., but eventually the relic glitch effect will kick back in, and this one's extreme because it knocks you out completely. Then the event occurs. After that event, you pass out again and find a man dressed quite similarly to the mysterious stranger, checking on us before we wake up properly. But now the entire scene around us has changed. There's a new laptop with new log entries, a new vehicle placed down, some clothes on the ground, and even some interesting scanning devices scattered about. The vehicle provides the first clue as to who that was, as it is revealed that this is actually Polyhister's car. Polyhister, of course, being the inhabitant of the church, the person whose footsteps we've basically been following this entire time. And well, now it actually isn't Polyhister's car, as it was in fact just added to our garage. So yeah, you get this monster truck as a reward reward for solving FF06B5, and I wouldn't be shocked if this was that DLC monster that was found way back in the day, and people are speculating to no end as to what that could be, but things definitely go deeper even just beyond this car. On the laptop, we could find new personal logs detailing what happened while we were unconscious. It describes Polyhistor themselves arriving at the site to find us unconscious, and despite trying numerous things, including a good old slap to the face, Polyhistor was unable to wake us up. Later on, they set up this equipment to scan the area to uncover why their path led them here to us, although nothing abnormal is found from those scans. And this part definitely seems pretty important. Polyhistor, despite also searching for the truth behind FF06B5, didn't ever have the same vision as us. But instead, we hear in the next entry how Polyhistor has their own vision. It's somebody watching Polyhistor through a monitor, and later on, a second vision occurs. Similar to the first one, someone is watching from a monitor, but now they are watching the entirety of Night City and not just Polyhistor, leading them to conclude the watcher is watching everyone in Night City. But it's in personal logs 5 and 6 where things really heat up. An empty room, the watcher was gone. I wanted to leave to see more, but the further I got from the screen, the more I was drawn back to it. I sat, taking the watcher's place, focused on the image, blurry, indistinct, but gradually sharpened, that familiar outline. The watcher, sitting in their usual spot, but now on my screen, looking at them through them, and they watched me, watching them, watching me, watching them. Then a presence in the room. I turned around, no one. When I turned back, their eyes, no longer staring at an image of me in the screen, but at me, the real me. I'm afraid, but I must return. I understand now, but it's too late. Something ends, will end, has ended, farewell. And then we have nothing, because yeah, that honestly is kind of the end of the FF06B5 mystery. Some visions, a new car to keep, some personal logs, leaving us with many more questions than answers about what exactly all of that just was. So for some additional context on all of this, as you do attempt to begin interpreting it, the Ouroboros that kicks off the vision and symbols around it does appear to be the exact same one that we had in The Witcher 3. This number that keeps popping up is known as the fine structure constant that quantifies the strength of the electromagnetic interaction between elementary charged particles. On Polyhistor's original laptop, one of the emails was somebody responding with a completed spectroscopic analysis, and what that does is test electromagnetic frequencies. So there is a commonality there of electromagnetic frequencies or electromagnetic interactions, but I'm really struggling to see how that becomes relevant here. This segment that kept appearing almost looks curved, like it's meant to represent a curved monitor or a curved screen. It's definitely not forming the typical rectangular display. The phrases shown with no future, trust no one, and turn back each correspond to one of the life paths in Cyberpunk. Prior to patch 1.5, each of those phrases appeared on the mirror you were looking at as you started the game. No future was Street Kid, trust no one Corpo, and turn back Nomad. Although again, it's not entirely clear how that could be relevant, and there at least is one final secret, as the cube itself actually makes up a QR code. This is of course not scannable in game as it's constantly moving and broken up into pieces, but if you do piece it together using the texture files, this will lead to a message. You've been looking long enough, and stop now. It's over, or is it? No, really, it is. One thing ends, another begins, except nothing's beginning or ending. That's just your gonk mammal brain trying to make sense of your world. To create order, to control, to try and delay the inevitable realization that you're nothing, we're nothing. Mathematics, physics, chemistry, in the grand scheme of things, nothing but tools to acquire power, hardly more advanced than the first rock we grab to bash each other's skulls. Isn't that liberating? You're welcome. Go be free. Frolic like the over-evolved primates you are, and for all you seekers and fools finding patterns where there are none, creating order out of chaos, here's a little secret for you. This isn't the first time we've met, and it won't be the last. But for now, you can rest easy, celebrate your adorable little achievement by cracking open a brosif and marveling at being the only creature on this planet with opposable thumbs. Just don't read too deep into it. In the grand scheme of things, you get the gist. Catch you around, Jumbata. This seems like further confirmation that this is in fact the end of the mystery, at least for now, but this all leaves quite a few questions as to what everything means. Like, for starters, who on earth is talking to us through the cube here, or through the cube QR code? It almost had a similar vibe to Johnny Silverhand, or at least his ideology on things, but seemingly this is somebody that we've met already and will potentially meet again, so that seems to be important. It's also very clearly in the game world, as they describe how humans are the only people with opposable thumbs left, apes are dead, and it also mentions cracking open a brosif, an in-game beer. Two other clues that could be relevant were were also added with patch 2.01, as the maze got 2 new secret entries. So now in 2 places it'll say "It sees you" and 547. The relevancy of both are still a mystery. And yeah, that's kind of where things are left. It's an interesting one because for all intents and purposes, it appears that the physical part of FF06B5 is solved. You reached the end of the puzzle. After going through all of these various steps, you finally have this reward of a cool new car. But then also a message, which perhaps is the real reward from all of this, something we're meant to interpret on a personal level, maybe? One thing that immediately jumped out to me was the clothes being left behind. Polyhister just spontaneously stripping down here and running off without his car seems bizarre, but if you do go back to The Witcher 3 Next Gen, where you could find this clue around FF06B5, there is also a only partially dressed person who is dead. The placement here is interesting. The basement of this tower is where The Witcher 3's clue was, so it almost seemed like somebody found the clue and then jumped off the tower and died right around here. So could this be polyhister? Could the deeper answer of all of this being time or dimensional travel? This could even be further backed up by the recently found Yennefer shard in Cyberpunk. During the Songbird ending, you could find a shard titled Last Wish that reads, "Ever since we professed our love to each other," up at the very top with a view of the whole world, "I knew right then and there that nothing could separate us except death." This is a reference to the quest The Last Wish from The Witcher 3. This is Yennefer's own quest. It ends with a view overlooking the landscape, and the protagonist tells Yennefer that they love them. But the shard continues. "If you're reading this letter, it means that time has finally come. My final wish is that you take my ashes to the moon and scatter them from the highest peak as you gaze at the stars and think of me. Why?" Which does seem to confirm that Yennefer and Geralt travel to the time of Cyberpunk, but Yennefer died, and even next to this shard, you could find an urn that seemingly contains, well, Yennefer. So now on one hand, this could just be a fun little Easter egg that's completely unrelated to the broader FF06B5 mystery. But at the same time, we have somewhat of a suggestion at time travel here. Then we seem to have some other people who did successfully time or dimension travel. So maybe this all is connected, and there is a larger connection between the Witcher and Cyberpunk universes. But overall, it very much so feels like the path to FF06B5 is displayed as a path to enlightenment. But the curious part is, despite numerous players becoming enlightened, we all seem to follow different paths. And by players, I mean the players in the game world. For example, for us as V, we are led to this mattress first, shown the cube, and then knocked unconscious. Conversely, Polyhister, who was also following this same path, but only gets to this location later on, after we arrive, and they see visions of a Watcher, never actually seeing the cube or any of that, and then Polyhister seems to vanish completely. It's not really clear what happened to them. So that begs the question, why the difference? Why are two people seemingly following the same path having two completely different experiences? One of the obvious answers could be this is all connected to the relic, and that would make sense considering that it is a relic glitch that appears to commence these visions. It also could suggest that this truly is a message from Johnny Silverhand. Another relevant piece of the puzzle could be the maze answer. As we talked about in the previous part, the maze within the Arasaka 3D game has pieces of a QR code that eventually will lead to an unwinnable game of tic-tac-toe that does have the message, the winning move is not to play. This is a reference to the movie War Games, but with how massive of a clue this is, and where it seems like it never really comes into play, it definitely seems like it must be relevant somehow. So is the solution of the FF06B5 mystery to not play the game at all, at least somehow? And then we're also left with perhaps the biggest mystery of all. What does this have to do with FF06B5? This mystery began 3 years ago with the release of Cyberpunk 2077, but the solution that we're looking at here was only possible a couple of months ago in mid to late 2023. So were people just searching for 3 years for meaning behind something that was actually meaningless? Even here at the end, I still don't really get what FF06B5 means unless it really is just a color code. And hopefully this perfectly explains the title of this video. Yes, the FF06B5 mystery was solved, kinda. Because we have the answer, we have the solution, it seems like we reached the end, but what this all means is still a long path ahead of us. Let me know in the comments down below, what's your interpretation of this mystery? But with that said, if you're interested in more secrets hidden within Cyberpunk 2077, check out this video.